Are live. Welcome to my thoughts on Arrow Season 1, Episode 2, Honor Thy Father. This episode is rated TV 14. So will this video be? There will be spoilers for this episode and the one leading up to it. Absolutely love this episode. Holy crap. Okay, I think I'm going to get, before I talk too much detail, I definitely want to make sure to say, I forget if I mentioned, but there was some really excellent stunt work in the first episode. I forget if I mentioned that in the specific video on the first episode, and more here as well. It just, you know, the when Oliver when Arrow throws the guy he's after at the start, for example, off, not off a tall building, but off a building nevertheless, and some other really amazing stuff. I loved how dynamic the camera was here in some of the fighting, like moving around whilst there's all this fighting going on. It just really captures the energy of the chaos, Right. I think pretty much everything I said in praise of the first episode in that video goes for this one too, so I'm going to try not to restate anything that I already said. Let's see. I thought that I think... So, this episode opens on what I guess I'll find out soon if I'm right about, appears right now to me to be basically the intro to every episode, at least for a while. The thing of, him saying, on the first day I was on that island, and the whole thing about having to make, to help this, to right the wrongs of his father, it's interesting. I would have thought that it would feature other characters, but then they do a really good job over the course of this episode. Like, each time he encounters a character, they say enough to bring you up to speed. Lauren, and it felt like it made sense. Lauren is telling Emily, hey, stay away from this guy, he cheated on me with my own sister. And that's all we need to know. And he himself said that I should stay away from him. Yep, that's all we need to know about their relationship right now. So, and Emily doesn't know him, and a lot of people, when they first meet Ollie, are very charmed by him. So, let's see. I think that might just about... But yeah, it was very effective. Him, just a montage of him readying for, an attack, and then it cuts to an attack. And I loved how they cut directly from Arrow walking towards the camera to Ollie walking away from it. Really, really excellent bit there. And this thing of... And I am really digging that it's a catchphrase, what was it? You have wronged... he says the full name, and then he says, you have wronged this city. That's... fantastic. And let's see. I think fantastic fighting throughout the bit at the start against that one guy. And I also appreciate we don't need to devote an entire episode to every single name on the list. Sometimes it can just go fast, But the fact that Arrow threatens the guy, walks away, and then Ollie walks in, and we hear the threat worked. The guy, and he's like, I mean, I was always gonna meant to do that, and I like that Ollie is like, this guy gets more screen time than the Kardashians. You still remember the Kardashians? That was, I mean, he, it would appear that he just, after 5 years, still remembers the Kardashians. But, and it is a big but, it turns out, he's been catching back up, on the... But I do think that it, shots fired. Officer, I'd like to report a murder. The weapon was words. They're saying that the Kardashians are as shallow as Ollie pretends to be, which, I don't think I'm going to talk too much about them. Others have done a really solid job of critiquing the various things they've said and done. But, I do agree that they're shallow, and that has nothing to do with them being women or uh, any other kind of minority identity any of them ascribe to, belong to. Sorry. Anyway, I think that might. Oh, right. You know who's awesome? By which I mean Kelly Who's awesome. You know it's a good day when you get to see Kelly Who getting fight scenes in a comic book adaptation. Like, I thought I had already gotten all my birthday presents this year. Like, holy crap. And she just walks in and she just takes charge. And she's, oh, so glad I get to see her in something again. Just, yeah. She's so freaking awesome. And yeah, hand-to-hand combat. And they, yeah, she could have taken out Dig. But, the throw, and we get the thing about, Dig points out, that was a kitchen knife. It wasn't weighted, and he's like, oh, I guess I was really lucky, and the thing about, yeah, I love them doing the very comic booky thing of, they fight, the two of them fight near the end of the episode, which, of course, they're gonna do. That's part of why we're here, like, as soon as we saw her and we found out, oh, she, like, takes people out, she's a good fighter, we know, oh, that's where this is going. That's, yeah, so, 2 episodes so far. Both of them had Ollie go up against someone who actually is able to put up a fight. I really appreciate that. So they do the comic booky thing of, the two of them fight, and it's a stalemate, and then they have to run away, because now you can have this thing of, like, they're gonna fight again at some point, and now, both of them know the other one is dangerous. Neither of them have the element of surprise, and I can figure at least one of them is going to try to make some effort to prepare for the next fight. I gotta say, that's a trope I really love in comic books and comic book media in general. And it made sense, neither of them want to have to deal with the cops. And I think that pretty well covers, let's see. I really appreciated, so at the start of the episode, we get the thing about, well, we have to declare you not dead, whoopsie, made a mistake, just, yeah, and it's the kind of thing where, I don't know if you have to give, like, a big statement or speech, or if, someone just, like, holds up a giant cartoon arrow and says, see? Still alive. And believe me, he is still alive. But I appreciated that it gave them a chance to have him monologue. Sly dog. And yeah, they do that thing that works really well in stuff like this in TV shows. The episode opens on this talk about, the time he spent on the island and his father and this thing, yeah. And then, near the end, he's like, I'm not my father. Stop trying to make me be that, and yeah. Let's see. I thought that I like the thing about, he's leaving, he's leaving. And he goes and, she's like, what are you doing here? And he's like, well, I got a case of the not deads. The rumors of my death were greatly exaggerated. What are you doing here? And she's like, my job. That was, I like that. That was, and it is also a fun, because again, there wasn't like a previous, at least not on the DVD, Blu-ray rather. I don't, it's possible that it originally aired previously on, but, my version certainly didn't. And so, she's a lawyer. I mean, we don't also see that not long after, but I don't know. It was a funny line that he's like, you're a lawyer. What are you doing here in the courtroom building? It's like, it's just, yeah. I thought it was, yeah. And the, the thing with Emily and, I don't know if we're gonna see her again, because now, there is justice for her. I thought they did a really good job giving her personality. Like, this is one of those things where, when you have a one-off character, and episode where the plot is brought up and resolved, and it seems like, because, yeah, they say, oh, he's gonna go to jail for the rest of his life, so we might not see him or her again for the rest of the show. They might not even reference them. That makes it difficult to give a lot of, and there's so many other characters that have to have strong character moments, and they continue to deliver on those. I thought they did a good job on having Emily. The thing about, I lost my mom when I was just a baby. My father's the only family I've ever known. I want justice. They're gonna, what was it that they're gonna have to take me out if they want to stop me from trying to get justice. Which is also, it's a major theme on the show. People who are driven by a desire for justice. And like she's a one-off character, but Ollie and Lauren are both. I appreciate. I suppose it's possible that it's just accidental, just complete coincidence, But I can't help but wonder if someone working on the show is like a fan of classic slapstick, because there's a character named Laurel and there's a character named Oliver. Like, it's just, it comes close to fully naming that iconic duo who were indeed just phenomenal, like incredible at the craft. I've watched everything I've been able to of theirs, which is not everything that they've made, but yeah, absolute big fan of them. And yes, I know his name is also Oliver in the comics. I forget if Lauren, because see again, like I said in my video on the first one, I do know Dinah Lance. Does Dinah also sometimes go by Lauren? In the comics, I forget about, but yeah. I think that does bring us to, I love the, see, this is again one of those shows, sometimes you have, a lot of times when they open their mouths, you have misogynists claiming, oh, I guess it's just illegal to be a man now. All masculinity is toxic masculinity, which is obviously absurd, but they don't want to listen when we point out, no, this is positive masculinity. So I love this show just displaying, nobody outright says, this is positive masculinity, but it is, like Oliver is not yet ready to open, or let's see, I guess he has somewhat opened up to Lauren later when they're both enjoying their super fake ice cream. That was like, I've noticed that with like coffee cups and such. Once people, there were people who pointed out. I'm not sure I've noticed with like ice cream before, but I mean, props to the prop department and the actors for like, I mean, she's sitting there, she's like pretending to dig into the ice cream, and he's also the way he's like going at the cardboard, the container, but yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong, I've have some a little bit, very little experience with working on set. Yeah, you don't really want to have to deal with something like, for example, ice cream, because it's just going to melt and it's going to be annoying to have to deal with. And, if it's in the shot and it's like fully melted, it might be distracting to watch, because we would figure, well, why don't they just put it in the freezer until it freezes again and then take it back out, but sets can run hot even if you're not trying, lights can make them hot, for example. A lot of people moving around can create, heat. So anyway, let's see. Anyway, I think that does bring us, yeah. At the start of the episode, he's saying, he's not ready to open up. But there is that realization that it would be good if he did. Whereas toxic masculinity would say, no, men don't have feelings, we just push them down, and then eventually you punch a wall, and or your significant other, and that's why we progressives try to fight toxic masculinity, It does not do anyone any good. But positive masculinity can make the world a better place. And also the bit where, he genuinely does sometimes allow himself to be vulnerable. At one point he said, early in the episode, he says to Tommy, or wait, I forget if it was Tommy, but he says to someone, can we wait until tomorrow with the work thing where they tell him that they want him to be the new CEO, I think it was, and yeah, again, like toxic masculinity would have been like, him like yelling at his mom, like, you don't get to tell me what to do or something. But no, he just opens up and says, I need a break, and yeah. And as we see, yeah, like your loved ones, if you're not being unreasonable, a lot of the time will grant you that, a lot of the time, especially women, there is, I'm not don't get me wrong, I'm not like a gender essentialist. I'm not saying you're born like that. I'm talking about socialization. Women are socialized to help take care of us, and if we get better at taking care of them so they don't have to carry the entire load, that would make the world a much better place. And yeah, we all have some power to do that, be the change you want to see in the world. So if this was cinema wins, there would definitely be a win for, what was his name again? I'm sorry. Stephen Amell, I think, is all these actors' workout routine. Yeah. And yeah, climbing the rope, very impressive. And yeah, I like the bit where, Thea sees his scars, and leads to that thing of, because it's that thing of like, she can see his physical scars, she can perceive his emotional scars, but the only way to deal with the emotional scars is for him to open up to someone. And yeah, I really love the fact, and again, just another example of women being really good at taking care of us men. She makes sure to say, you should open up, she did say, like, to some, or was it his idea that it was someone else that he opens up to? And I do also, it does make sense, he still wants to protect his little sister, the 17-year-old girl that he, last he saw was 12, so he's not quite ready, but, Lauren, yeah. I think that does bring us to, yeah, and I like that she, realizes and confronts him about, what does she say? You don't have to pickpocket my stash. I'm getting drunk, not high this time, and yeah, the thing about, how he's treating his family now that he's back, which again we can see pains him. And the thing about, she would talk to the tombstone about, who she had a crush on and stuff like that. And now, and she begged him to return, but now that he is, she feels even more distant from him than when he was actually gone, and also the line about, I know you went through hell, but so did we, and that, again, an extremely important thing to keep in mind when someone is, for example, missing, presumed dead, and that sort of thing. It is extremely painful for their loved ones as well. And yeah, this thing of, he's physically back, but like emotionally, spiritually, maybe not so much. He has to be careful that this crusade, which is of course important, no doubt about that, and working, he is actually getting results. He gets 2 of the names just in this episode alone, and 1 in the previous one. But he has to not let it take over. You can devote your entire life to something like that. You have to take care of your loved ones as well, and that again is positive masculinity. And the fact that he, you see on his face, he is like, it's true. I gotta, I think that does pretty well get us to, I like the, yeah, it was also really nicely done with, so Ollie walks out of the courtroom, and, paparazzi everywhere, and, like, you can see, any second now he's gonna get a second court appearance for assaulting a paparazzi. Apparently he 4 times in court before. One of them was for peeing on a cop. So not everything he did back then was terrible. ACAB all the way. But yeah, and the way that he's like overwhelmed, and they ask, what happened on the island, and he gets the flashback again to Sarah dying, very, very effectively done. And again, this thing of like, once you're in that situation, you really need people to give you space, and paparazzi are not known to do that, I think that does. Yeah. He walks out the courtroom, and then there is, the central antagonist of the episode, and tying it nicely together, and yeah, fantastic. Look, I'm a real mark for a good courtroom drama scene, but yeah, her talking to the jury and pointing out, and it strikes that excellent balance of like there is some exposition going on there, because this is kind of the first time we're hearing of some of this stuff. But it also does feel like something a lawyer would say, and it's a powerful, like it's very clear she is a really great lawyer. Let's see. I like the little moment of I'm afraid I forget her name, but the woman who works with Lauren, Lauren is like, I'm doing my job, and then the other one says more like the DA's, and you can just see on Lauren's face, she's like, time and place. So, this is not. I really don't want you to make me look bad in front of Oliver. So that was a fun little moment, and props to him for not like, trying to run with that, because he really is not trying to make her. He's not trying to upset her. He's not trying to hurt her. I think that does pretty well bring. Yeah, really great. This thing of so yeah, the antagonist by himself and Arrow well, not by himself, but in the area, Arrow comes in, attacks, and threatens him, and here we see, I really appreciate that because like early in the episode it was reiterated a lot of the time, so far, twice it has worked to just intimidate the person, and fair enough, later in the episode it does end up working, but yeah, sometimes it actually gets a little bit worse from his initial intimidation. He does not manage to, and yeah, I Kelly, who is fantastic, every single line, her look very distinct. I love a comic book media character that has a really striking look. The hair and her like outfit, really really nicely done there. I think that does pretty well bring us to. So yeah, he knocks on the door, and she's of course nervous because right. Was this no? Sorry. I'm gonna yeah. So cop dad, dad detective shows up, and can I just? I love this like no disrespect to the actor, who I don't think I'm familiar with from anything else. He's got a Walton Goggins thing going on, and I'm digging it. I dig it like dig. And yeah, he puts protection on, and she's like, "This is what you did when I discovered boys." That was a fun line. So yeah, very. He was always overprotective, is what we're seeing, and now and I really appreciate it. It's a classic comic book thing of like the cop thinks that the vigilante is the bad guy. He's dangerous to good people as well, which we the audience know is not accurate. It is indeed, when there is vigilantism in the real world, yeah, sometimes it is like, wait, who is this vigilante targeting exactly, and who is safe from them? And yeah, sometimes violence doesn't reassure the people that the violence is done in the name of, and that is, yeah, I really appreciate that because like specifically he is saying he's righting the wrongs, he's fixing the city, but some of the people of the city don't see it that way. But the let's see, yeah, that brings us to so yeah, Oliver knocks, and by this point she's got the police protection, so it's like, is this actually, because we were told you gotta close off this case, and it's a really great misdirect and expectation subversion, and setup and payoff, because later she is attacked by Kelly Hu's character, so really nicely. Also great that she actually got to speak. Okay, so I'm gonna try not to screw this up. I don't know if it was Mandarin Chinese, but they did say Chinese triad. It's possible it's Mandarin Chinese. It's possible it's a different Chinese language. I do not speak any Chinese language, so I can't recognize it. But it was cool that she's and he responded with so yeah, he really has learned a bunch of languages here. But yeah, you have the thing of yeah, he knocks, and she's like, who is it? Who is it? And checks through the door thing, and I do also appreciate she does open the door. Like if the if it was completely hopeless between them, I don't think she'd open the door. She might say, "Go away and leave me alone," or something. But, she opens the door and playfully says, "How am I supposed to stay away from you if you keep, going to where I am?" And yeah, he tries to open up to her, and it seems to go well. And, yeah, he gets to enter the apartment, and she's like, "So what's in the bag? A shark or something?" And yeah, that is also like, if you're gonna apologize, bringing ice cream, that's a fairly yeah, that's a good gesture. Let's see. I think does that pretty well get us to. Yeah, great fight scene inside the place. And the thing about, he hears, like, what was it, like, metal something, and she didn't even hear it, because he's at this point, like, so hypersensitive to, he's in this survival mode still, and yeah, the fight, and it's really clever, this thing of, yeah, Dig shows up and is able to take out, I think, 2 of them, and then get, fights with Kelly Hu's character, and it's only the knife throw. And yeah, I do really appreciate this thing of, like, there was already in the pilot it was Tommy, and now Dig. This thing of, like, some of these characters might realize that Ollie is Arrow, or at least something that he's not telling them. Right. Also, the thing about yeah, he keeps getting away from Dig, and now he's like, what was it? If you ditch me again, your mom won't have to fire me, and there, yeah, some respect. There's some mutual respect there. Great to see. Again, he's not really. Oliver doesn't really seem to treat the people who work for him or the family as if they're, like, beneath him in some way, which, more rich people, powerful people in general should treat. We are all equal. Of course, rich people think some are more equal than others. I think that does get us to the, let's see. Yeah, I like, and Dig pointing out, "See, that's why you might need a bodyguard. And I will always bodyguard you." And I think right, and the thing about, yeah, his mom asking, "Where do you go when you, leave Dig behind?" And he says, "Well, I was alone for 5 years, so, and yeah, she's like, "That's enough of that." And he claims, "Oh, I don't even know her first name," which is a fun little thing, because, I mean, technically he doesn't. That's because she doesn't exist. She doesn't even just live in Canada, but that was a fun, yeah. I appreciated that, and I think that does pretty well get us to so yeah. Him talking. The thing about, will he join? Will he become the CEO of this new thing that's in his father's name? And he does he pretends to be really immature again, and mom points out it's not so charming anymore. Obviously he's not going to be able to do the arrowing if he is also CEO. He would have to constantly disappear from, I mean, it's not like he's Bruce Wayne or something. But I think, does that pretty well bring us to, I feel like there's something more I wanted to say. Okay, right. There's definitely a couple of things near the very end. Yeah, the bit where, near the end where, he grabs the shovel and he's, like, pretending to be really drunk. Asks everyone to sit down, and brought, like, an American cheeseburger for himself for some reason. But, yeah, he yeah, sometimes comic book characters don't do so well at press conferences and such, but yeah, he in part he is like trying to convey, he's trying to make it as it's the act, he's saying I am still the irresponsible jerk that I was 5 years ago, which gets people to not think, is he Arrow? And yeah, also like obviously his mom isn't going to want someone who doesn't know what they're doing to lead the company. I mean, yeah, he's his son, he's his father's son, lucky coincidence, but it is, and he even points out it's not like I guess we're pretending I got an MBA on the island. It is like, yeah, um, and the let's see, it's this thing of maybe I have said everything that I had about that. Yeah, I think that might cover. Yeah, and they're at the end, removing the gravestone, and I think that might just about be. Yeah, I think that does. That's then it's just the very ending. Oh, right. It was the thing about he gets the confession, which also very clever. Firing arrows that keep almost hitting him and essentially nailing him to the wall without actually doing so. Also earlier, holy crap, he hangs the dude upside down. Maybe that was one of the stunts that I was trying to remember earlier. Fires an he's swinging back and forth, fires an arrow, and it only cuts the cheek. Like, holy crap, that is control. That is very impressive, and he tells him, confess the murder, and also, if you're lying, I'll be back. But yeah, later he does get the confession, and I guess in Starling City they do not have a law about like coerced confession because I feel like this qualifies. I'm not complaining. It was something I noticed. But yeah, the thing about the cop staying there aiming the gun at him, and Arrows staying there trying to think, okay, I've got this ninja thing going on. I've definitely got some plot armor, but he's also a pretty major character. He's been in both episodes so far. Maybe this is one of the situations where he could hypothetically hurt me. And so he fires an arrow and disappears. And then the arrow we see had the confession. So very nicely done there. And yeah, he ordered an innocent man, a father, to be murdered. Yeah, in real life, I'm a prison abolitionist, but I do definitely agree there have to be consequences for that sort of thing. That was also, they did a good job of like, because it's clear, and they even say it, I think it was his daughter, Emily, who says, they slit my father's throat, They can only show so much on a TV-14, but we see the knife and we see start to, and we can tell that was a slit throat, it wasn't like a paper cut or like a shave or something. I think that does get us all the way to, yeah, I thought they're doing a good job on that detective of this thing of like, yeah, he just wants to keep his daughter safe, and also this young woman who's being targeted, he wants justice for her, and you have this thing of like, again, it's brought up. Can you? I think I may have forgotten to mention that in my video in the first episode. But this thing of can you get justice whilst working within the law? With its shortcomings. And of course, a piece of media like this, at least some of the time, the answer is going to be you need vigilantism. But yeah, I appreciate it being brought up. That's again a thing that if you read some of the old comics is like a given. Like, yeah, this is what you're here for. But by 2012, it's like, let's question it though, because like there have been real life vigilantes where it didn't go so well. Yeah, in real life, please don't be a vigilante. If the law is not sufficient, do what you can to change the law. Yeah, um, actual vigilantism is a lot of the time very harmful in real life. I'm not saying like obviously if a law is unjust, like protesting it is great. Um, I think that does bring us to the end. So yeah. I don't know how many episodes. All right. So I've already mentioned a couple of things that go with. So a lot of American TV shows. They kind of make it so that you can essentially just watch any one episode and you'll be fine. They'll tell you the stuff you need to know to be able to follow it. And sometimes a lot of the times they'll have stuff even late in an episode in case you know we're gone for too much of the commercial break. Like maybe you changed channels during the commercial break and then switch back, or maybe you started watching the episode late or something. So I wonder how many people that watched this episode that didn't watch the first one didn't realize, like when his mom says, you've already been abducted once, so like we know by the end of the first episode, but it's not brought up in this one. Yeah, that was her. I'm like, well, Mom, are you planning on having him abducted again? But by the end of the episode, she says, he knows nothing. And then we see the symbol that was also, in the book. So, yeah, this is the person behind the. Yeah, I look forward to finding out more. Right, it was also really cool. Yeah, and the flashback where he has to bury his father so that the birds don't eat him. Just yeah, and when he comes close to his father's corpse, he vomits because it's a very repulsive thing to be so close to something dead like that. So yeah, he buries him neath the rocks. And then he is injured by an arrow. And we see a figure that, yeah, I'm looking forward to finding out what's going on there. Yeah, and yeah, we saw him find the book itself, which and yeah, he starts like thumbing through it, and we realize, oh, most of the pages are blank. We didn't even need the Daily Wire's lefty lawyer to point that out. So yeah, that's a reference to Queen Coke Francis. This is a recent video ranking Daily Wire merch, and yeah, one of the things was a book with a lot of empty pages, and it's like, see, it's funny because the book is called Reasons to Vote Democrat or something like that, So yeah, they're saying there are no reasons to vote for Democrats. Yeah, but it's like imagine. I don't know if I guess by the thing that they wrote, maybe they hadn't gotten sued yet, but they could have gotten sued if they were selling this without, noting, and I believe it is like fine print, so a lot of people might not notice it, They were trying to sell a largely empty book for a not insubstantial amount of money, for a nominal fee. Yeah, that's gonna like rub a lot of your own supporters the wrong way. Like, oh, funny joke, but like that's the kind of joke that like works well if you're like if you own a copy and then one of your friends comes over, maybe especially if it is a Democrat, if you haven't alienated every single lefty in your circle. If you say, oh, I've got a book you would like, and you hand it to them, and then maybe have them thumb through it right in front of you, like say, oh, switch to page. Oh, I forget, but it's a little bit in, and they're thumbing through, and it's blank pages, and you can stand there with one of those obnoxious smirks that conservatives love to do. But asking that much money for a book that looks like it's full of words, and then there's so little in there, like, holy crap. I mean, hey, I don't know that much about publishing. I've never drawn a book or written a drawing, but I feel like that might be bad form